In the early years of life, we're forming patterns for relating to other people, and we develop it mainly with our primary carer. It's often the mother, and that style, it's like a pattern of call and response that we find that works. It becomes a style that we probably carry with us for the rest of our lives, and it's called our attachment style. A simple form of attachment theory. Let's imagine that this jug with the blue liquid is the mother and that this is the baby. And when a baby's born, it will have many needs and it will probably experience them just as discomforts. And they'll usually signal them through crying. And when they cry, the mum will come and try to figure out what the need is and meet the need. You know, might check the nappy and then feed the baby. When she gets it right, something more than just nutrition goes into this baby. When the discomfort stops, the baby feels a relief that its mum can actually diagnose and meet its needs, and that develops into a kind of security in the baby. And the baby signals its contentment by, smiling or sleeping, and that some of that good stuff, that security goes back into the mum. So during the course of any given day, there are just hundreds of these interactions where baby signals a need. Perhaps she goes, gah, 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 and mum comes along and tries to meet the need. In this case, it might just be a little bit of attention. So she might go, boo, and baby's eyes light up, and a little bit of the good stuff goes back in. So over the course of hundreds of little attuned reactions, the security begins to build up in this child. And now, if mum misses her needs, she may lose a little bit of that security. She might cry a little bit, but then mum will come back and say, hey, I was just in the shower, and reassure the child. And in so doing, she repairs that little break in their attunement, and on they go. In ordinary everyday life, Mary Main, a researcher in this area, suggested that actually a mother can miss her baby's cues and needs 60% of the time in any ordinary day, and still the security can build up in the child such that we would count it as being a securely attached individual. It's different when there are real moments of heightened attachment anxiety, and those moments are usually associated with threat, with fear, with traumatic, scary events. So, for example, there's an aggressive or violent argument between the parents. There's a real terrifying situation for a baby, and there'll be a big spill of security. And what's more, if the parents are either frightened or frightening, then they aren't able to repair that. They might come along and try and comfort and reassure the child. But again, any of you who've tried to comfort a child when you're stressed yourself, when your own fight-flight system is firing, will find that it just really doesn't work. So in terms of these big scary events, a baby in the course of its early life could have a few of those big losses, but eventually it's a self-regulating organism, and it's going to find strategies to stop losing any more of that security. So it might look a little bit like this. It just blocks in what it has left. And now if there's a really scary, violent event in the family, it won't really lose much security. However, the downside is that when mum comes along to give it cuddles or love, what you see is that it just kind of passes over this child. It's like water off a duck's back now. And there's no way for more security to build up. The other possibility for a child who's really losing a lot of their security because of repeated scary events is to do almost the complete opposite. And rather than blocking everything in and disconnecting a little from the world, a child can become more porous. And in order to take more good stuff in from more sources, the difficulty with that is that they can take in their comfort, the security, but it just runs through them. It doesn't build up in the core of them to create a core of security. It's like they've become a leaky vessel. So around 60% of us are counted as securely attached somewhere in the central area of the continuum, with about 20% counting as anxious and 20% as avoidant. A securely attached baby will cry and protest separations and needs, but although it might have the odd loss of security, it will also remain able to take in more comfort. It will grow into a toddler who can afford the odd loss of security. It's got enough inside it. When it goes off to nursery school, there'll undoubtedly be a protest on the first day. But when it realises that mum is going to come and collect at the end of every day, it will gradually get used to that. It will grow up into an adult with a secure attachment style, and where that comes out most specifically is in our very close partner relationships. So this individual will be really marked by the fact that they're able to manage both autonomy and intimacy in their romantic adult relationships. In contrast, our avoidant baby will avoid comfort and avoid intimacy in the only way really babies can before they can walk and crawl, which is often by avoiding eye contact. Mum comes towards this child and they kind of turn away. As this one gets older and starts nursery, there'll be some things that they appear to manage better than other children. So at the nursery gates, this child is likely to just walk through without a second thought. Difficulties will come as this child develops into an adult and tries to start their own romantic relationships. Because although this child will want romantic relationships, this one will find it extremely difficult to cope with close intimacy. So initially, Mr. or Mrs. Avoidant might seem to be doing great. They see someone they like, they begin to connect with them, the intimacy builds. It's not till it hits their kind of threshold that they will suddenly get massive anxiety triggered by a partner's neediness or emotionalness. They'll often feel that their partner is making a big deal of things. And in arguments, when they feel overwhelmed by the other's emotion, they'll want to leave, and they'll want to probably leave for 3 days and then never speak of it again. That's just their conflict resolution style. They're also will usually be very unaware of their own more subtle emotions, almost like they've got a sort of muffler between heart and head. And, you know, they'll spend a lot of time saying, I'm fine, there's nothing wrong. And then all of a sudden, when their threshold is reached, their anger will burst through, and they might act really irrationally and aggressively and shock themselves. Our anxiously attached baby will be a very clingy baby. This baby will cry a lot and will be really hard to comfort. You can probably imagine what starting nursery school will be like for this baby. It will cry and be inordinately hard to comfort, and that will go on for days and weeks and be very distressing for those around them. They often get much more noticed as babies as having attachment problems because they're much more demonstrative around them than the avoidantly attached child. Once this one grows into an adult and starts their own romantic relationships, they'll take that quite clingy style into relationship. So this anxiously attached adult wants to be super close with their partner. So close that sometimes they want to know what's going on inside their head and where they are at every moment. So jealousy lies very predominantly at this end of the attachment continuum. They'll often feel that they love their partner more than their partner loves them. Although it's not strictly true, it's just they love at a very close distance. This one will rarely have gaps between their intimate relationships. They may jump from one romantic relationship straight to the next, or they may stay in really difficult relationships because they can't bear the idea of being alone. They won't do autonomy well. So what we find is that our attachment style is to some degree an emotional style, with our anxious person on quite an emotional roller coaster and our avoidant person generally quite subdued or disconnected emotionally, except when they get really into extremes of emotion. More than that, it's a distance of intimacy. So while some people love at this distance, other people want to love at this distance. It's not a matter of how much they love each other, it's just the intimacy distance from which they do it. It's really helpful to recognise that though you and your partner might not have the exact same attachment distances and the exact same triggers around what overwhelms you in the other person, that actually there's no right or wrong. It's just a difference, like one of you enjoying tea and the other enjoying coffee.